The rain came down in sheets that night, drumming against the metal roof of Marcus Webb's garage like 1,000 tiny fingers tapping for attention. He wiped his hands on an old rag, the grease from the day's work still clinging stubbornly to the creases of his palms. It was nearly 10 o'clock, well past closing time, but Marcus had learned long ago that single fathers didn't get the luxury of keeping regular hours. His son, Jamie, sat cross-legged in the corner of the garage, surrounded by toy cars that he was lining up with the same careful precision Marcus used when aligning brake pads. The boy was 6 years old, with his mother's dark curls and Marcus's steady green eyes. Those eyes that had seen too much change for someone so young. Marcus glanced at his son and smiled softly. Jamie was his whole world now, had been for the past 3 years since Sarah left. She'd said she wasn't ready for motherhood, wasn't ready for the small town life, wasn't ready for any of it. Marcus had been angry at first, then heartbroken, and finally, simply determined. He would be enough for Jamie. He had to be. The storm outside intensified, and Marcus moved to lock up for the night. Through the rain-streaked window, he could see the dark outline of the town's main street, deserted except for the occasional car passing through. His garage sat on the edge of Riverside, a place where everyone knew everyone, and strangers were as rare as snow in July. That's why the silver sedan caught his attention. It pulled into his lot slowly, hesitantly, its headlights cutting through the darkness like uncertain questions. The engine sputtered once, twice, then died completely. Marcus watched as the driver's door opened and a woman stepped out into the rain. She was young, maybe in her early 30s, wearing what had once been an expensive-looking business suit, now thoroughly soaked. Her dark hair clung to her face, and even from this distance, Marcus could see she was shaking. Not just from the cold, he thought, but from something deeper. Something that made his chest tighten with concern. He grabbed an umbrella from beside the door and stepped out into the storm. "You okay, ma'am?" he called out, raising his voice above the rain. She looked up at him, and in the glow of the garage lights, he saw her face clearly for the first time. There were no tears, but her eyes held the kind of exhaustion that went beyond a few sleepless nights. This was the weariness of someone who had been running for too long. "My car," she said simply, gesturing at the sedan. "It just stopped." Marcus nodded and moved the umbrella to cover both of them. "Let's get you inside first. You're soaked through." She hesitated, glancing back at her car as if it contained everything she owned. Maybe it did, Marcus thought. He'd learned not to judge people's circumstances too quickly. Life had a way of humbling everyone eventually. "It'll be safe here," he assured her. "I'm Marcus. This is my garage." "Olivia," she replied quietly, following him inside. Jamie looked up from his toys, his eyes wide with curiosity. He wasn't used to visitors this late, especially not ones who looked like they'd just walked out of a thunderstorm. "Hey buddy," Marcus said gently. "This is Miss Olivia." Her car broke down. Jamie waved shyly, and Olivia managed a small smile in return. Marcus grabbed a clean towel from the supply closet and handed it to her. "Thank you," she murmured, pressing the towel to her face. "I'm sorry for showing up so late. I didn't know where else to go." Marcus shrugged. "That's what mechanics are for. Let me take a look at your car in the morning when the rain lets up. For now, you should probably dry off and get warm." Olivia nodded, but she didn't move. She stood there in the middle of his garage, dripping water onto the concrete floor, looking lost in a way that had nothing to do with directions. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" Marcus asked carefully. "There's a motel about 10 miles up the road." Her face fell. I don't think my car will make it that far. And honestly, I'm not sure I can afford a motel right now." The admission seemed to cost her something. Marcus recognized pride when he saw it breaking. He'd felt it himself those first few months after Sarah left, when he'd had to ask his parents for help with Jamie, when he'd had to admit he couldn't do everything alone. He made a decision then, one that probably wasn't smart from a business standpoint, but felt right in his gut. "Look," he said, "I've got a small office in the back with a couch. It's not much, but it's dry and warm. You're welcome to it for the night if you need it." Olivia looked at him with something like disbelief. "You don't even know me." "No," Marcus agreed, "but I know what it's like to need help. And I know what it's like to be too proud to ask for it." She was quiet for a long moment, studying his face as if trying to determine whether this kindness came with strings attached. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Can I sleep in your car instead? Marcus blinked, confused. My car. She glanced toward the corner where his old pickup truck was parked, the one he drove when he wasn't working on other people's vehicles. I don't want to be a burden. If I could just sleep in the backseat of your truck, I'd be out of your way. I'd be gone first thing in the morning. Understanding dawned on Marcus then. This woman, who carried herself with the remnants of authority and success, was so afraid of taking up space, so accustomed to making herself small, that she'd rather curl up in a vehicle than accept a proper place to sleep. Miss Olivia, he said gently. I offered you the couch because I wanted to. Not because I felt obligated. You wouldn't be a burden. Her composure finally cracked. A single tear slid down her cheek, and she brushed it away quickly, almost angrily. I used to run a company, she said suddenly. I had 200 employees. I made decisions that affected millions of dollars. And now I can't even keep my car running. I can't even afford a motel room. She laughed, a bitter sound. How's that for a fall from grace? Marcus felt Jamie's small hand slip into his, and he squeezed it gently. His son was watching Olivia with that intense, thoughtful expression he got sometimes, the one that made him seem much older than 6. My daddy says falling down isn't the bad part, Jamie said suddenly. Both adults turned to look at him. He says the bad part is if you stay down and don't get back up. Olivia stared at the little boy, and then something shifted in her expression. The brittle defensiveness softened into something more genuine. Your daddy sounds very wise, she said. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I try. Don't always succeed, but I try. The rain continued its steady percussion on the roof, filling the silence between them. Finally, Olivia nodded. Okay, she said. The couch would be wonderful. Thank you. Marcus showed her to the small office, bringing her an extra blanket and a pillow from the apartment he and Jamie shared above the garage. When he came back down, Jamie was already gathering his toys. Is Miss Olivia going to be okay? Jamie asked as Marcus lifted him up for the climb upstairs. I think so, buddy, Marcus replied. Sometimes people just need a safe place to rest for a while. Then they can figure out their next step. Like when I fall down and you help me up. Exactly like that. Upstairs, as Marcus tucked Jamie into bed, his son looked up at him with those serious eyes. I think Miss Olivia was scared, Jamie said. Yeah, I think she was. But you weren't scared of her. Marcus kissed his son's forehead. No, I wasn't. That's good, Jamie murmured, already drifting off. Because maybe she needs a friend. Marcus sat there in the dim light of Jamie's bedroom, listening to the rain and thinking about second chances. About how sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could matter more than grand gestures. About how everyone, no matter how successful or put together they seemed, was just one bad break away from needing help. In the morning, he'd look at Olivia's car. He'd probably fix it for whatever she could afford, or maybe for nothing at all. She'd thank him and drive away, back to whatever life she was building or rebuilding. They'd probably never see each other again. But tonight, in this small garage in this small town, she would sleep safely. She would know that there were still people in the world who helped without expecting anything in return. And that, Marcus thought, was worth more than any amount of money. The rain finally began to ease as midnight approached, its rhythm slowing to a gentle patter. Somewhere below, in the quiet office, a woman who had forgotten how to accept help finally rested. And above, a man who had learned the hard way that strength sometimes meant asking for support closed his eyes, grateful for the opportunity to give what had once been given to him. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own questions. But tonight, there was shelter from the storm. And sometimes, that was enough.